Hey guys, welcome to the first ever edition of Late Night LoWDown. Essentially, Late Night LoWDown will just be LoWDown, but we're going a little un-PG this time, and this is really just to make up for the fact that we couldn't bring you this show live on Tuesday, so we apologise for that. Tonight, joining us, we've obviously got Chris, we've got Krista, and Rensis will be joining us when he can. So, a big thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight, and please make sure, if you're listening, you can send in any questions or conversation topics that you want to hear us discuss to one of us on Twitter, and we will make sure that we can get it across. Of course, anyone who sends something gets a free shout out as well. And if you listen to this on YouTube, guys, make sure that you can check in on Tuesday, where we're going to be doing LoWDown normally, and Thursdays, where we do Showdown at the same time every week. So, how are we doing, guys? Feeling good this week?
Absolutely.
Yep.
For those wondering as well, Paul and Skeletor, who are usually here, will be joining us, on the usual Tuesday show, hopefully. And if not, we'll definitely have them in on Thursday when we're going to have Minds of Carnage with us as well. So, guys, what do you think to this week's news? Obviously, we've got a couple of big stories. Obviously, there was talk of Kurt Angle being in talks with WWE again. And one of the suggestions was that WWE wanted him to wrestle full-time, but the idea was they told him this knowing that he would reject their thing. Do you think this is something WWE would do for the sake of business? Like, would they reject him politely like that, or do you think they would just tell him straight up you don't want it?
With Paul Levesque being Paul Levesque, I would not be entirely surprised if this was... Because I know that Vince probably wouldn't mind having him back, but I don't think Triple H is going to necessarily be as interested. Triple H seems to be focusing on the newer guys rather than the older guys. So I feel that I wouldn't be too surprised if that was completely true. But you never really know, do you?
Krista, what do you think? Do you think this is something that they would do normally, or do you think this is just a polite rejection to Kurt Angle?
I think it's a polite rejection to Kurt Angle.
I'm kind of on the fence with this myself. It sounds like something like Vince would do to politely reject him, but with all the things we've been hearing about Triple H, this sounds like something Triple H would do to try to throw the internet off. He's apparently a very vivid supporter of the internet talk. He likes the idea that people talk on Twitter, even though he hates social media, which I find very funny. To me, if Kurt Angle's going to show, it's got to be now or never, really. If not, do you think it's a good idea that he stays with TNA, or do you think he should just give up now?
I think he should ride out the wave with TNA. Because I think it's also a case of, he's still basically under contract to them. He could be in violation of any kind of contract kind of wording. I don't know what his contract says, of course. But there could be a clause in there, while he's working for TNA, he can't really do anything for WWE. So his hands might be tied till the contract is done anyway.
Well, I know his contract with TNA is completely finished at the moment.
Is it finished now?
Yeah, it's been finished for 2-3 weeks now.
I honestly think he should hang up the boots.
You think that? As far as I'm sorry, on you go, Chris. I'll let you speak.
I was going to say, I'm not going to lie, I think he should have accepted the full-time offer. Even though he says he feels like he can't fully do it, I think it would have been worth it to say, you know what, I'm willing to give it a try.
Indeed, I think had he taken the full-time offer, the chances are they weren't going to have him wrestle every week. He seems to be too big a talent to be wrestling every single week on every Raw, every SmackDown, every pay-per-view. I think they would have used him in a limited circumstance had he just said yes.
I think they should have negotiated. I think he should have possibly negotiated and asked for an RVD Jericho-style contract where, he comes in, he works full-time for so many months, takes a break, and then works full-time again for so many months.
Yeah, I think that probably would have been quite a feasible idea, actually.
Even Batista said, when you come back full-time, you're expected to do the house shows, which, I feel like, if you come back full-time and you're not doing the house shows, you're not being back full-time, are you? So... I feel like the option that RVD's taken, I can respect a hell of a lot more than I can respect, and I'm going to say it like Lesnar or The Rock, who come back and only do Raw or Raw appearances and matches on pay-per-views. I respect the guys that come back and do the whole thing, which is what I'd have preferred Angles would have done.
That's fair. A lot of people were hoping that if he comes back, he would do the whole lot, and I understand that. Tell you what, moving on from Kurt Angle, let's talk a little bit about where he's came from, TNA. His name is Tyrus. His name is Tyrus. His name is Tyrus. By the way, I've got 2 hours I can do this for. His name is Tyrus. Brodus Clay, will he have more success in TNA than he did in WWE? Or is he just going to be card filler in the same way that Mike Knox, Ezekiel Jackson, and Snitsky have been?
They'll try and build him up to be a top guy, but I don't think it'll work.
He's even wearing the same bloody trunks. He just has Tyrus across it instead of BC. Because he still has Redemption written up the back.
Right, okay. But
So it doesn't really differentiate him from persona at WWE. So I think he's going to come in, kick a bunch of asses, but then quickly get, shoved down the card.
I questioned if he's going to end up in the same situation with Diesel. You know how Diesel for months played the ass kicker, and then all of a sudden he was fighting for the world championship against Shawn Michaels, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I'm wondering if they're going to build up Tyrus and EC3 that way.
Could be.
It seems feasible. I mean, Brodus Clay is likable enough that he can be a badass heel and still be over with the crowd.
Yeah.
And EC3, I mean, that guy is... What a mistake for WWE to make, to let that guy go. He is phenomenal in the ring, but I guess his time in TNA, much like Christian's, giving him a chance to shine.
Well, and that's just it. Like, I think TNA is a good spot for these boys who kind of get lost in the shuffle. Some of the guys are... And with TNA, I mean, because they do tapings, they can still work the independent circuit. I know many of the roster does.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Austin Aries this month was in PCW Wrestling down in England, I believe.
And Eric Young is all over the independent scene, and quite a few others are in the independent scene. Some go
Eric
Eric
Young's all over TV, full stop. I mean, he's got his angling show, he's got Eric Young Gone Wild, things like that.
Yeah,
I have 3 words for you. Global Force Wrestling.
But that still hasn't gotten off the ground, and I don't know what they're doing.
If the talk is true, then Global Force Wrestling will be working with New Japan Pro Wrestling, I believe.
And several of the indie promotions.
Yeah, they've got a Australian one, they've got a couple of English promotions. I mean, they're really putting their finger in all the pies to ensure that they are global. It's impressive.
From what I've heard, is that ICW is the big one. Apparently they could possibly work with ICW. So, we'll get guys like Colt Cabana working, hopefully.
Okay, I'm going to be controversial. Before we even get to the controversial part of the show, Colt Cabana is a glorified comedian wrestler. He's a friend of CM Punk's. He's good, but he's not anything past good.
Agreed, but guys like Grado and Colt Cabana, they do entertain.
Yeah, they entertain, but that's the thing. I wouldn't want to see them on a normal TV. I'm okay with seeing these guys on small shows. If I put Grado or Colt Cabana on Global Force Wrestling, I'm changing channel.
Have you seen that Grado apply? This is news. Have you seen that Grado applied to the TNA boot camp in England?
And then he got voted off.
Well, like with Grado, and a ridiculous name at that. Sorry, Grado. He is entertaining, but he's definitely not somebody I'd want to see on my TV week in and week out. But if he had like the occasional spot, that'd be okay, because he's kind of in the same vein, and I'm so sorry, Grado, because his in-ring work is not bad. It's not bad. He's kind of like in line as Slater Gator.
I would rather see Grado as a backstage goofy assistant for someone. Like, that would be an awesome role for him.
I think he'd be a hoot in that. I really do. There are, I have been watching a lot of the independents, mostly ICW, I will admit. And I look at some of the guys, and they're great in ring, but they don't have the gimmick or the persona to hit the big stage. They don't.
And I'm hoping.
But you look at a lot of guys that have been. I mean, the perfect example of this is Steve Austin, who had a complete lack of gimmick, but once given a gimmick, flew off the handle with it.
I'm going to argue with that. Stunning Steve was actually a decent gimmick, and he was getting somewhere with it. However, it wasn't the gimmick. I think Steve Austin was a different ball completely because he could wrestle or brawl at least, given the chance. Like his moveset could fit with most gimmicks. Unlike Grado's moveset, who is very comedic, even Colt Cabana. There hasn't been a time where I've watched Colt Cabana and thought he is a great wrestler.
I've never thought that.
Yeah, exactly.
Another example, then, Drew Galloway.
Okay, Drew Galloway can. This is bad as a Scotsman, right? Drew Galloway, or Drew McIntyre, as most of you know him, can go in the ring. He's not bad. I'll give him a 7 out of 10. Yeah.
Right. Well,
He can go. Yeah, it was a bit high, but his promo skills are lacking. Like, he got one good promo on his return to ICW wrestling, and I haven't been amazed by him since. I don't think he can hold his own.
Well, and that's just it. Is that it was probably the best promo of his career, the most organic promo of his career, but he hasn't followed it up. Some promos have been really lackluster. I watched the promo between him and Tommy Dreamer, and Dreamer carried the promo, which is really kind of appalling. Considering it's Tommy Dreamer.
To be fair, I didn't mind McIntyre in WWE on the mic purely because of his accent. But I'd still say that Drew McIntyre is a better promo cutter than Adrian Neville is, for example.
Yeah, Adrian Neville is not very good at promo, and surprisingly enough, they were all sent through promo school at WWE. I mean, they were given classes on how to cut a promo.
I don't think it's his fault. I think he just has a monotone voice and a very thick accent, which kind of it's not really something you can learn out of, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah, and I think his lack of promo skill is because he hasn't cut as many promos as he should have or could have. I mean, if you think about WWE, he didn't cut as many promos as you think he should have.
Yes.
Even the 3MB, Heath Slater cut most of the promos because Heath Slater can cut a promo. Or of the other scripts he was given crappy promos. Like crappy lines, and I'm like listening to some of the promos like, you gotta be kidding. Like, this is embarrassing. It's cringeworthy.
I think if they gave him something he could sink his teeth into.
Yeah, like, he is someone, if you gave him the right scenario and the right dialogue, he could be a scenery chewer. Like, he could knock it right out of the park. But if he's not given the leeway to do that, or given the material to do that, it falls far short. I mean, even John Cena or CM Punk, who can cut some really, really great promos, and then also some of their promos, if they're given the wrong kind of dialogue, are absolute crap.
But the other example that you've just given was EC3, aka Derek Bateman, who was given F all by the WWE, but goes to TNA, and suddenly he's quite good. Not just on promos, but in ring to that given opportunity, to be fair.
I'll argue this and say that he was given more time in TNA. EC3 or Derek Bateman has, while he was in WWE, was hoping to get the Mr. America gimmick, which is all well and good.
Doesn't work outside America.
Honestly, I don't even remember him in WWE. I mean, that's how little of an impact he made.
Last thing I remember of him is he had long hair and Rose Clay destroyed him, and that was it.
Yeah.
the two of them are working together now.
Yeah, he was on NXT, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right, I'll tell you what. Let's speaking of Americans, let's move on to our first question of the night from John Tibbs. After Rusev defeats Big Show, which is a hell of a statement, by the way. After Rusev defeats Big Show, who else will fall until Kurt Angle shows up and defeats him? I'm gonna say that I don't think Big Show will win, but I also don't think Big Show loses by pinfall. I think he's going to get disqualified by Mark Henry.
It'll be a screw finish. I agree. It won't be a clean win. It'll be
I wouldn't mind.
or because Mark Henry interfered, or because of a low blow, or just something that's not above board and clean.
I wouldn't mind seeing Luke Harper versus Rusev.
That'd be all right.
I fully believe. Well, okay. First off, if you're going to put Harper versus Rusev, it's a bad idea for his first singles feud. You don't want him to lose in his first singles feud.
Okay, Rowan versus Rusev.
No, again, you don't want him to lose either. These guys are being pushed. That's the point. If you want to put, say, Harper out there, you put Harper out there for the US title. You get Harper versus Sheamus. That'd be a hell of a brawl match.
It would.
I was actually about to say I could see them moving on to Sheamus and then keeping him around until like Cena, for example, is available.
I'm going to go with the obvious choice here. I'm going to say that Rowan goes after IC, Harper goes after US. Bray's going to get put into the main event, but he won't be going for the title.
He doesn't really need it right now, anyway.
Exactly. But as far as the Big Show Rusev thing, I think Big Show's going to knock knock Rusev out and go for the pin. Henry sees that he's going to get the win and gets jealous. Therefore, Henry interacts and gets involved. And from that point, we get, yet again, Big Show versus Henry over the next couple of weeks, while Rusev says he's undefeated as per usual.
I don't see that happening. I see them doing the typical Mark Henry gets on the apron because he's concerned. Big Show gets distracted and then blames Henry for it. I would rather see a Big Show heel turn than another Mark Henry heel turn at this point. Because I feel like Henry's only just come back to being a face.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be a big deal. That wouldn't be a bad thing because Big Show is due for a turn. He makes a better heel than he does a face anyway. And that's it's always good to have the go-to feuds. If you're kind of stuck, then you can go back to it. It's like, you look at Rollins and Ambrose, that could be a go-to feud for years. Like Flair was with
everyone.
With everyone, but with Steamboat, that's the longest feud that those two, they had. I could see Rollins and Ambrose, like Mark Henry and Big Show, and those kind of feuds to be the go-to. If we got to reset or we need to take a break, we're going to drop back into these feuds because these guys have, decent in-ring chemistry. They work well together. Everybody knows each other so well that they could put on a decent show without, running the risk of injury or anything else.
Okay, guys, if you're listening, please send us in who you think will face Rusev after Big Show. Krista, who do you think is going to face Rusev then after Big Show?
Well, it'd have to be one of the big men. So if it wasn't Harper or Rowan, they could end up... They don't really have a lot of big men left besides Sheamus. I could see Sheamus being the next guy up because of the U.S. title. I could see that being the angle that, the U.S. title has prestige now, that Sheamus has kind of been out there more than it was when it was with Dean Ambrose. And Rusev, like the storyline I'm going with, is that Rusev wants to, kind of do a step more to antagonize the U.S. audience, and what better way than to hold the U.S. title and to maybe disrespect the U.S. title by not, dragging it around or dropping it or just, whatever. Just to kind of
so much heel heat, and that would be like WWE's way of spitting on it.
I think it could be cool if they had him like put a sticker over the front, so where it's got the United States flag, they put a sticker over it, so it's got Russia's flag, which then means whoever then wins it off of Rusev could just rip it off and obviously get a massive pop.
Oh, I
Or the Russian title as opposed to the U.S. title. It's now the Russian title or the Russia title.
I don't know. I love that idea of him dragging it around because we all know that WWE devalues the US title. It's not their belt; it was WCW's.
Yeah.
There, if they let him do that, I will laugh so hard. However, I pose the interest now. We were just talking about Harper and Rowan. If you want to make Harper's first push serious, you have Miz beat Sheamus for the title. You have Harper go after Miz, and then you have Sheamus versus Rusev anyway.
Yep.
Harper's still going after something serious. You get the whole Wyatt versus the Hollywood gimmick.
I'd put that. I'm interested to see what's happening. To be honest, I was already interested in what was happening with the Wyatt family, but after Monday Night Raw's promo with Bray Wyatt, where he was like, there was smoke and everything on the promo, it was like he was in the chair then disappeared. That has me interested to see what they do with Bray after this. Not necessarily Harper and Rowan, but Bray more than anyone.
Oh yeah, the time off TV for these guys has done so much more for them than being on TV in the last 3 weeks could have.
I remember you guys saying like a couple of weeks ago, like, oh no, I feel like it's hurting them, and I was like, well, I think they're better in the vignettes than they will be on screen. Lo and behold, I am right.
I do think it does some damage. Like, it would have been nice to see some of the stuff that Russo was talking about, like the Bray giving them life lessons, essentially. But I understand being off TV can sometimes be a good thing.
I think, and if I'm going to do a little bit of fantasy booking, y'all. If I was booking WWE, I would make I wouldn't run the roster 300 days a year. I would give the guys time off, or the guys and gals time off with TV, so you're not tired of them.
That's an interesting idea. The only issue from a business point of view is leaving off your top drawers, like Ambrose, Rollins, for example, who are at the moment. Everyone goes, oh, Ambrose and Rollins don't draw. They sure as hell keep the viewers more interested, I can tell you that right now.
But, you have them at the house shows because that draws money as well, even though the cards are subject to change. I don't need to see it every week. And I think Ambrose's time away from TV didn't hurt his stock at all.
I feel, quickly going back to the White set, this is an opinion I've got very quickly. I think it's better to go away and take a break and come back to a win streak rather than try and go from a lose streak to a win streak, if you know what that means. If you know what I mean from that.
Yep.
Yeah, he left in a good, his spot to leave with the whole Cinderblock thing, that was a good note to leave on. Because everybody's like, holy crap! And for him...
Okay, other than the fact that it was blatantly like styrofoam, but yeah.
Well, it's the imagery. Because you could say the same about any movie you watch. I can tell you secrets about how they do stuff that you'd never watch movies in the same way again.
Which I'm gonna say that brings me to a point after yours.
Okay, so I think it's the timing and everything as well, and it's important that if we're going to see these people every week, if they're gonna do a big spot like they did with Ambrose, having him off, it was a good way to have him exit to do the movie he was doing or whatever they have him doing. I think it's important that if you do a big move like this, if you want people to believe that it's real, or at least going to hurt, they need to sell the moves.
Cough, John Cena, cough.
Yeah, cough, Cena, cough. Because for me, if you want to draw the viewer in and you want to have them invested in the product, they're asking the audience to do what Hollywood asks audience to do when they go to a movie. They're asked to go in and suspend belief. We all know that, so-and-so movie star is not so-and-so superhero or pirate or them sparkly Twilight vampires. We know that they're not really that, but when we go in the movie, we're expected to suspend belief. And that's something that pro wrestling also asks us to do. Kayfabe or no kayfabe, to suspend belief, to think, wow, like, look at this. Because you know the stuff they do in the ring, the flips, the lands, the elbows, the knees, the suplex and all that. You know the impacts are real because you see the ring bounce. You see them kind of like rolling around. They're taught how to take a bump, but so are stuntmen.
I have to admit, Cena getting dominated at SummerSlam and turning up a week later didn't really do anything.
No, and for me, it's like, I don't believe, at this point in time, if I watch Cena, I don't believe any beatdown he ever gets. It's like, I'm sorry, but, you know, this isn't a beatdown because he's going to come back, you know, next Monday, perfectly fine, nothing's wrong. And I'm sorry, but let me tell you something. I've fallen down the stairs and walked funny for a week.
I like seeing like when Bryan and Ambrose have had the bandages on for extended amounts of time. Like that sort of stuff I'm interested in.
Yeah, and that to me means, you know, whether it's actually true or not, they're keeping with the storyline. They're keeping in character. I got my ass kicked. I gotta look like I got my ass kicked. You know.
I'll tell you, my favorite example of this is, do you remember when Brock Lesnar broke Triple H's arm?
Yes.
3 days later, Triple H was photographed. After being in a cast on Raw, he was photographed at a live boxing event with Mayweather without an arm cast on.
Yeah.
Now I understand he's got real life and blah, 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 investor of a company, blah, blah, blah. No one cares. If you're going to wrestle, you stay in character. I miss that so much about wrestling. He should have at least had the cast on. Like, even if it was the cast without the sling, I would have believed it. Also, the fact...
even if he was sitting there and he had his, like, suit coat on and he had the arm empty and he just kind of was hiding his arm, tucking his arm next to him, it's still believable because you can't... His arm isn't in the sleeve. Wow, he's actually hurt. And it actually allows the audience to buy in to the story they're telling. You know, if they don't have it when they're... You know, and that's the problem, I think why they were having, they might have kind of let kayfabe go, because they'd have to be in character 24/7. Just in case somebody broke past their house, they got to be in character kind of thing. And, you know, and I understand they have to have a life as well. And I think that's why I say, you know, if they have that kind of big injury, they shouldn't be seen on TV.
My favorite... Sorry, on you go.
And, you know... maybe be a little bit more vague about the injuries they've had, so that if they're caught outside of, like, the storyline, or, you know, mowing their lawn or going to the grocery store, people won't kind of go, well, shit, his arm ain't really broken, jeez. You know, they can still buy into the story.
Speaking of story, and we were on about movies earlier, something that was mentioned was integrating Kane's film into WWE this time around. Again.
The only way I'm okay with it is if he wears the mask. Anything other than that shouldn't happen.
Yes, because I love that mask, and I think it's a hell of a lot better than the one that he normally wears. When he wears it.
I would have to agree. If they're going to tie in the movie, then they have to have him in the character of the movie, as opposed to just, you know, the dude in the fruit roll-up mask, because nobody's buying it. We all know it's fake hair attached to the fruit roll-up mask too, and that's part of it that really irritates me.
Somewhere Skeletor just cracked that fruit roll-up line. No, I agree. SmackDown this week, if anyone watched it, Kane mentioned how much he still enjoys hurting people and making them suffer. If they want to start bringing that back, just have it that when he was filming this movie, he began to remember what it was like, and that he starts wearing the mask. It's that simple. Don't overcomplicate it. It's the reality era, after all. I really
he had a relapse.
No, this mask represents the reminder to him of inflicting pain on others.
Yeah. You know, or it's kind of like, you know, the movie The Mask, where he put on that wood mask and he became like the green-headed guy, and he completely was, not himself. They could have the same storyline for Kane. He put on the mask. Wow, flashback city.
Split personality storylines don't really tend to go too well in wrestling. Just saying.
What I'm saying is that he put the mask on, and it gave him flashbacks. Everybody knows about flashbacks, or at least anybody who was in the 60s who did acid. It's just, well, he did this, and now he's had flashbacks. He remembered how good it felt to hurt people, and so here's his persona, and he is back. Holy cow.
I'll tell you what, talking about people coming back, we were asked by PWE Podcast, how would you book a Ryback return?
I would have
Chris.
You say Chris or Krista?
You would have what?
I would have Lesnar and Heyman in the ring. I would actually have him have a match with Lesnar. Purely because Ryback's one of those guys that has the believable figure. Yes, they may not be able to put on the most technical match in the world. Boo-hoo, no one gives a crap.
I have to agree.
On that. No, I was about to let you go before I shit on that.
Well, just, part of me thinks it agrees. Part of me is like, that'd be awesome. Just have Ryback come back and, like, rip his way through the roster. I'm back. I'm hungry. I'm going to kick everybody's ass because, shit, I used to be at the top. I want that again. And just have him kind of, you're going to have to sacrifice, probably out of the gate will be, Zack Ryder or Heath Slater. They will get sacrificed again.
Actually, I've just got a better idea.
What?
I would book his return as having him go through people on the roster. I'd have him in a match with guys like Sheamus, with guys like Cena. I'd have him be winning these matches and then cutting a promo about how everyone is just meat on his table. And he is hungry, he will eat, he will consume them, he will beat them. And then, he will defeat anyone. And he stood in the ring with Curtis Axel. Curtis Axel's nodding and grinning and everything. And then just have Ryback turn around and clothesline the shit out of Axel. Yep. Just to prove the point that anybody and everybody is a target.
And then he can do that feed me more thing again. But not in the same way, but just at the end, just to kind of tease other, so that I'm, everybody's just, meat on my table, and I'm just gonna, plow through it, and then at the end kind of go, feed me more, and then walk off.
Okay.
And now you're gonna shit on it. Feel free.
Yeah, I'm gonna shit on it now. Your first idea, no, it can't happen. Ryback Lesnar can't happen for the fact that Ryback would have to lose. You never want to lose on your first match back unless you're going to have a huge story coming off it. And they're not going to want to have Ryback Lesnar as a continuation of a feud for the next 3 months. Second idea, I can agree having Ryback come back and beating a load of people is a clever idea. He is strong, he is muscular. If they want to make it reality, make it look that way. Have him beat people, not jobbers, actual roster members. However, who does he face once he's beaten everyone? Chris, you were talking about their clotheslining Curtis Axel. If he does that, he's going to get a heel reaction. He's just turned on his friend. Babyfaces don't do that. By beating everyone on the roster that comes up to him, he's going to be a babyface. Especially with the Feed Me More crap.
No, I don't want a face Ryback. I want a heel Ryback.
Me too.
This is why I'm about putting him with guys. No, if he comes back, he should be booked as a bulldozer, like he will plow through anybody. And I don't mean this in a Goldberg kind of way. I mean this in that, hey, I'm going to kick your ass and rub your face in it kind of way.
If Ryback comes back, he is going to be booked as a babyface until at least WrestleMania, once someone else holds the belt. The minute someone else holds the belt, say it's Roman Reigns, you put his first challenge against someone like Ryback, who's been built up till that point, then you've got a decent challenge. I mean,
I don't like that. I
think Ryback would be a babyface when he returns, but he will eventually become heel again.
But I still don't like that.
Oh man, I think as far as the Curtis Axel thing goes, keep him away from him. I mentioned it before and I thought it over. They need to keep them separate unless they're going to put them as a tag team again, and I don't want that at all.
This to me, I would rather they didn't just try and pass it off like, oh hey, these two miraculously aren't friends anymore. I want to see a reason why these two aren't hanging out anymore.
Yeah.
To me, Ryback is one of those guys who, to me, should now be booked as. Let's put it this way: Lesnar's sticking around for how long now? He's got a contract through till WrestleMania 31, maybe 32. The issue that you've got there is he wrestles 3 times a year. You're going to need somebody to come across as a powerful, as a monster heel. Because let's be honest, Orton, everyone goes, oh, Orton's a monstrous heel. Orton's not a monstrous heel. Kane isn't a monstrous heel. He loses too much now. You don't have a monster heel in the company that is seriously and has the image for it. That would, to me, would be Ryback. I would have Ryback be booked as the monster heel. I would even tease Rusev Ryback purely because that could be an interesting feud further down the line, but not just yet.
That would be a good feud, I think, down the line, the Rusev versus Ryback. And you're right, because you can't. I mean, Roman's not quite in the position to be a monster heel against, or a monster opponent against Lesnar. It's just not going to happen. And everybody else that seems to be at the top of the food chain that could do that, there's no way.
Allow me to fancy boot for a second.
Absolutely.
Note if you will, Daniel Bryan, Bad News Barrett, Ryback, all injured. What would happen if they all returned together with a certain letter on their t-shirts? I'm just saying, you've got 3 guys who have gone and done solo after being in a group. What usually happens in WWE after a group splits and does solo stuff?
No, purely because of how the Nexus ended, and everyone knows that fizzled out and died a slow and pain death.
Thank you,
yeah, thanks, Cena, you dick. They will not be bringing that back anytime soon. And it was also mentioned a few years ago, I can't remember exactly when this was, but they did say that there is no interest in ever bringing back the Nexus or the Core, because screw the Core.
Oh, but the Core...
the Nexus, and they even had, who else was in the Nexus? It was Heath Slater,
Justin Gabriel,
Ezekiel Jackson, Daniel Bryan was...
What's Harris there? Does that mean we're going to get Bray Wyatt in the new Nexus?
Yeah, and fired, and then rehired.
Let's have him run it, though, this time. Let's put him in charge. He can take it over. Back and over.
Barrett's character to me is a leader. So Barrett even looks like a leader. So, no.
He does.
I'm just saying, there is no opposition, really, besides the Wyatts to the Authority. You bring them back as a babyface team.
I wouldn't have them as the opposition to the Wyatts. To the Wyatts, I won't have them as the opposition to the Authority, because to me, the opposition to the Authority is something that needs to happen naturally and not feel... So let's put it this way, if they brought back Daniel Bryan, Wade Barrett and Ryback and put them in a tag team, I'd be like, well, why? These 3 have never really gotten on, they've never really... Sure, they were in the Nexus for like a few months, which died. A painful death.
I think if you put Wade Barrett in a tag team now, you'd lose... he's over as Bad News Barrett. I mean, the gimmick is over. He's probably more over than he's ever been.
He's more over now than Ryback was.
Yeah, and if you put him in a tag team, I think that particular gimmick would take a back seat. And I think he's done very well. He looks like he's having the time of his life now, whereas before it got the image of, I'm trying to prove myself, I'm a big tough guy and whatever else. And now it looks like I've got this gimmick, I'm going to make the most of it because I really don't give a shit. And I think he's doing better now because there's not the increased pressure to kind of justify his existence.
Yeah, and what I'm saying about Ryback with him, like I say, we're missing a monster heel, a believable monster heel at this point. Bray Wyatt, I would argue, is possibly a monster heel, but he doesn't have the image of one. He's more of a psychological guy than a physical guy. I think they need a physical monster heel.
Yeah. Which
is Lesnar right now, and he was Lesnar. He should be what Lesnar was 10 years ago. He should come in, maybe have a mouth. He doesn't really need a mouthpiece at this point. There's not really anyone that can do it for him. And he should come in and he should just be a wrecking ball, a bulldozer. Anyone and anything gets dominated.
And instead of I sometimes think the more effective promos are, the vignettes that they do where, they could have them come in as a vignette and just, demolish things without actually saying a word. Or
I could see a cool vignette.
Like keeping the verbal to a minimum for Ryback to start off with, but then once it goes on to increase what he's saying. For me, for a 3-hour Raw, I do not want to sit through a 20-minute freaking promo. And the fact that they do that to kick off a lot of Raws kind of pisses me off.
All Raws.
I don't want to sit and listen to Cena talk about what he's going to do and how he's going to succeed for 20 friggin' minutes. Don't care.
I would love to see a vignette whereby you don't see Ryback talk, you just see them like show the body parts like the leg and the arm and the chest and everything like the muscle. And in between those clips you can see him like clotheslining people from the old footage. And you just have the symbol of the R there and like next week or whatever.
And even have him say like from the shadows like, I'm coming. Or I'm don't get dirty on me, thanks. Say, my return is imminent or something like that, or
feed me.
Saying a date, just a date. Like December 3rd. And that's all he says is December 3rd. I think
I would have him either say feed me or I'm hungry.
I'm hungry works. And then at the end, just kind of put the date that he's coming back. Or,
feeding time.
The monster will feed this day. Gotta build up.
I would just have it's feeding time and then just have it show Raw next week or whatever.
Yeah. That could work too.
I'm really unsure where that leaves me. There's a lot of torn thoughts in there. Tell you what, we'll move on to our next question then. This is an interesting one that we've never really discussed. Strawn Angelic asks, is John Cena preparing to retire, or is this all just part of the rumor mill discussing his film career?
I don't think he's looking to retire per se. I think he's looking to... I think he's thinking ahead for guys like Edge, who, Edge got injured and Edge had no idea what he wanted to do after he got injured. I think Cena's possibly looking at the considerations for ideas for after, let's say he gets injured and he's got nothing more that he can do in the company.
Yeah.
He's looking for a backup plan.
Well, and I think that's a good idea for him. I agree. I think he's probably, you look at The Rock. The Rock's in his 40s and he still comes back. You look at Goldie, you look at Kane, you look at all those guys that wrestle in their 40s. So I think Cena's still in the mix. I don't think he's going to retire anytime soon.
The only thing I could see him doing is possibly moving to an RVD style contract where he does something, he gets injured, and then takes a few months break.
Yeah, and I could see him really looking at, finding something to do when his career is done. And I think a lot of those boys are taking, they're looking at the legends and seeing how many died young, much, much too young. And they look at the ones that are still around that have fallen on really hard times or are still wrestling long after they should be to keep the money coming in because they didn't have a backup plan.
I've questioned if it's finally getting to Cena with the amount of reaction he gets. Cena always said during interviews, even ones that were non-wrestling related, that he would move away from wrestling when he believed there wasn't a place for him anymore, or he believed that he could take a step back for the next guy to be in. When you've got all these new stars coming in, guys like Ambrose, Rollins, Reigns, whatever, these guys coming up, I think maybe Cena has realized that these guys could be more popular than him if he takes a back seat. And I've questioned as to whether him taking time off has been given a chance for them to prove that.
To me, it's also a matter of, there's a lot of reports coming in, and this is my debate for Hell in a Cell, by the way, which I'll talk about in a bit, is that Dean Ambrose is getting bigger reactions at the house shows now than John Cena is.
I would want to see that before I believe it, but yeah.
I mean, like, at the end when they try and get the crowd to cheer and whatever. Apparently, Ambrose, for the most part, is getting louder reactions than. I'm not sure where these ones are located, but he's getting bigger reactions.
No, I know what you mean. I've heard a lot about that actually. Um, I don't know if I would believe it, but if Ambrose is getting bigger reactions, I'm not going to take it as a big thing. You look at Ziggler; he's been getting huge reactions, sometimes bigger than Cena. Cena still gets booed, and they count that as a reaction.
Let's be honest. Ziggler is not a main event guy.
No, he's not.
Ambrose, on the other hand, is a good number 2 guy.
Well,
And I say number 2 only because of Reigns.
Do you believe that, or are you saying that because you believe that's what the company want?
But I honestly believe that in terms of the image, Ambrose is not a number 1 guy. In terms of skill in the ring and entertainment, yeah, he's a number 1 guy. In terms of image, no. And business is about image. So I can understand them wanting to push Roman Reigns as being the top guy. I get a lot of people who don't like him, but he, in terms of business, yeah, I can see it.
I think it's very telling that if Ziggler gets a bigger pop some nights than Cena, who's the face of WWE, as we all know, that should tell the brass, and that should tell Cena something. That, if a mid-card guy is getting more cheers than your main eventer, that, you need to take a step back.
Speaking of main eventers, we've got Hell in a Cell coming up, which I thought would have been the opportunity to give Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins a chance to main event a pay-per-view and see how it does. Instead, we once again have Cena versus Orton for the main event.
See, and that bugs me. I mean, Hell in a Cell is... I could see it being for Survivor Series or Royal Rumble or whatever, one of the bigger shows. I could see them going to Cena and Orton as the go-to guys to close out the night. But with Hell in a Cell, with everything that's going on in it, and the fact that it's going to be in a cell, why not roll the dice and see if Ambrose and Rollins could close the show?
And this is what I'm saying. In terms of storyline, it makes more sense for them to have the main event spot than it does to have Cena versus Orton, because who has the biggest storyline at the moment? Cena and Orton, who have just been put together again, or the guys that have had an ongoing feud for the past, 6 months-ish?
I fully believe that this next week, WWE are going to do everything in their power to make it look like Orton purposefully took out Cena. If you look back at the match on Monday, you'll see that he went straight in for Cena. I just want it to be clear that Orton hasn't forgotten who he is, and to get back to that, he needs to take out the person that first made him that way.
Yeah.
That's all we need to do for me, and I'll believe it's a good match. They can put it as a main event. They can even have Orton go on a bit of a snap. He can then take out Rollins the next time round on Raw. They've been hinting that for a while as well, so they've got lots of roads to go down for Orton coming off this match, either way. But I do believe it should be second to last on the card.
Well, and I'm of the same mind. Like, if they had Orton and Cena not close the show, but have Ambrose and Rollins close the show, that could be just another layer to Orton turning on Rollins, saying, you close the show, who the hell are you? Are you forgetting who I am, how long I've been in the business, I'm a third generation, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. It could just add another layer of resentment to the final blowout between Orton and Rollins.
Yeah. The other clear thing as well.
Interesting thing, though.
Because Randy does play the kind of pettiness, and that would be a petty topic to have an argument about.
Yeah, the other clear thing for me as well, with Orton and Cena closing the show in the Hell in the Cell, it just means that we're not going to get the interaction and interference by Kane tearing the door off the cell that I suggested they were going to do to make him look monstrous again, because, that was his debut. That was nearly 20 years ago now. That must have been, 17, 18 years ago now? That was 90... No, it would have been 96, 97. So it would have been nearly 20 years ago, so 17 years, basically. Um, I said they could have had Kane come down, tear the door off, interfere, and take out Ambrose. However,
Come
that's
up
clear.
through the mat. Wouldn't that just freak everybody out?
Yeah, pop up through the mat. But I mean, even that can't happen now, knowing that they're going to be second to last.
Yeah.
So I mean, are they going to end this feud here? This is what's really interesting me. By putting this match second to last, I think it adds a little bit more mystique to the match.
I just think it adds the feeling of, yeah, we know you guys all want to see this match, but we don't really care. Which to me pisses me off because you can blatantly tell that the crowd is clearly more invested at the moment in Ambrose Rollins than they are in Cena anymore. Like,
I think
Jesus. The reactions that Ambrose gets when he storms into the arena when everyone thinks, he's locked in a cupboard or something, he gets a massive pop. I remember the one where Seth Rollins was talking about Dean Ambrose popped out, the crowd stood next to him, and the reaction he got. Stuff like that. I don't want to say it's new because it's not new, but it's refreshing instead of Cena, and the fact that they've just gone, no, we're going to put Cena and Randy Orton in the main event. Unless they turn around this week and have like Ambrose dispute that claim with like Triple H or someone on Raw, I'm not that interested. It makes me feel like they're knocking the match and saying, oh, this is only a second tier match, when the fact is, this is a main event feud. Whether they want to admit it or not, it's not being booked as a mid-card feud, it's being booked as a main event feud. And it should be given the main event treatment.
And it's a feud that could last for yonks. And I don't think anyone would get tired of it because of what both men bring to the table.
I'll give you some food for thought. If they put this match second last, if fans really wanted to make a difference and really show that they didn't care about Orton versus Cena, they would leave after the match, and they won't, because the fact is they know they want to get their money's worth, and WWE know that. So by putting that match on last, what they're doing is showing that the newer guys can get a bigger pop regardless of where they are on the card. And I think that's possibly the test they're doing.
I also wonder if part of this is Triple H versus Vince.
Yeah, there is a lot of that as well, I guess.
I'm wondering if this is a power play by Triple H and Vince, where Vince is saying, oh, they're not good enough, and Triple H has kind of gone, well, we'll see from the reactions.
Well, and it could be because, I think there's a lot of politics that go on at WWE, and I think that's why we see what we see, is that, some of the people in the higher up still have Vince's ear. They're not big fans of Triple H or Stephanie. I think a lot of them are jockeying for position and trying to justify their very existence in the company.
It's also the fact that
they know that the minute that Vince finally steps down because he's too old, and the reins fall to Stephanie and Triple H and everybody in that tier, that the old boys are going to be out of a job. Or they're going to be told, this is the way it's going to run. You have two options. You either get on board or you get out of the way.
Completely agree.
And to be honest, I'm looking forward to seeing how NXT is being run. I never thought I'd say this, I can't wait to see Triple H possibly do more in charge. Because the show's being booked a hell of a lot better than Raw is right now, and I feel like the creative direction that Vince has, he's out of touch with the... I mean, going back to the split feud, perfect example, they would rather put Cena versus Orton as the main event rather than a match that people actually want to see. It shows just how out of touch you are with an audience. I mean, if you have a match that the crowd is saying, give this to us, you don't then say, well, you can have this instead. Because...
I agree, but I also argue that the crowd don't always know best.
Well, there's that, and there's also the, let's face it, TNT, but WWE is basically the only big game in town.
But
TNA does a pay-per-view every 4 weeks, whereas how many pay-per-views does TNA do?
They do.
TNAs are cheaper.
I would like to challenge levels here, by the way. You say the audience isn't always right. I say that's wrong. I say the IWC isn't always right. The audience is.
No, the audience aren't. The majority of the viewership is the ones at home. WWE, first and foremost, is a business. They look for themselves. They look for profit. The ones that make profit are the sponsorships by giving them payment. The ones that give the sponsorships are because of the people watching the TV. The more people tune in, the more sponsors pay interest. The bigger sponsors pay interest, the bigger money WWE gets.
The
Regardless of what match they put on, if the fans at home are not interested, they tune out. That's why they use ratings.
the audience, which is a representative demographic of the people who would watch it at home, I'm more interested. I'm not just talking about the certain cities like Chicago where it's all IWC smarts that are.
I completely get that.
The thing is that you also have to realize that it's done by the Nelson's rating, and that's a little box that are put on people's cable boxes, and not every home has them.
Yep.
They're only based in the States. Like any of the ratings that we see on TV, and it's the #1 rated show, and blah 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 blah. It's only in the States. I guarantee you, it ain't the #1 rated show in Canada. I mean, if they were facing off, if it's a good thing that Raw's live on Monday, even though they face off against Monday Night Football, and on Fridays. Because I'll be honest with you, if they were on Saturday nights and they were dealing with Hockey Night in Canada, they would lose viewership. Hockey is a serious business in Canada.
We all know. Anyone who's ever watched How I Met Your Mother will know that.
Yep. It's like college football in the States. Hockey in Canada is basically a religion. So I think that they have to cater not only to the casual fan, they also have to cater to the network. And the network might say, you can't have that on TV, tough shit.
I'm incredibly interested to see what the buy rate is for Hell in a Cell. Not just because of the network, but I want to see the reaction to getting Cena versus Orton, because this is, what, the third, fourth time they've main evented a pay-per-view this year?
No.
Well, not this year, but if you think about it, it would have been interesting to see, just as an experiment, even if they took one pay-per-view and did an experiment, to put Ambrose and Rollins to close the show and see how many people, if they're coming to the end of their subscription, kind of going, I want to see that, so I'm going to renew. See how many renewals they get. See how many buy-ins they get from the places that don't have the capability for this yet. And compare it to a pay-per-view that has Cena and Orton or some of the old other tired dog closing out the show, and just compare the numbers to see, were people more interested in purchasing the network or buying into the pay-per-view to see Ambrose and Rollins kick the shit out of each other?
Oh yeah, what I'm saying,
they would have to see Cena and Orton and that tired-ass feud for, the however many time that we've had it.
10 years? Has it been 10 years yet, or?
Since what, sorry?
Cena and Orton started. It's been about 10 years.
No, Cena's been doing it since, Cena's been 12. And Orton's been doing it longer.
Here you go, a little bit of numbers. The point being, you've seen Orton a lot over the past 10 years. You've also seen Cena a lot. Basically, you've seen them both a lot over 10 years. So yes, it's been over 10 years. However, a little bit of numbers and figures. Thank you very much to the Voices of Wrestling for this, by the way. 315. They have had a total of 315 matches involving John Cena and Randy Orton. That's both against each other on the same team, 6-man tags, Royal Rumbles, Elimination Chambers, etc. This also counts shows television pay-per-views, and in this case as well, Ohio Valley Wrestling. A lot of people are making it out like a big deal. The very first match ever featuring Cena and Orton on the main roster was a September 7th, 2002 house show that saw Cena and Orton team together with Mark Henry to take on Rico, Billy, and Chuck. 84, the total number of pay-per-view/TV show matches involving Cena and Orton. Again, that's both tag, rumbles, and any match of any type, right? This is fantastic. 20, this is the total number of TV, pay-per-view, and special event singles matches between the two. Going back to our previous three comparisons, we can see the fatigue for Orton versus Cena to the mass audience. Pay-per-views, right? Here's the best one, right? People make out that it's a big deal. 2002, they had one match on pay-per-view. 2005, they had one match on pay-per-view. '07, they had 4. '08, they had 3. 2009, which was their big feud, they had 5. Okay, I understand why you got tired of that.
Yeah.
2010, they had 2. 2011, they had none. 2012, they had none. 2013, they had 1. And in 2014, considering this is month 10, they've had 3. It's not a big deal. People are complaining too much about these guys facing each other.
The thing is that it's not just that we've seen this.
Watch.
Yeah, it's not that we've seen this over and over and over again. It's that we've seen it once and they don't change much. It's that it's not entertaining. It's not entertainment, which is part of the bloody title of the company, for Christ's sake. It's two guys that sit there. The match feels like it's slow paced and it lacks a little bit of an edge to it. It feels smooth, but like I said, that it feels too smooth. There's no edge. There's no nothing to it. You see Cena versus Orton. I can't hear you, by the way.
Sorry, I'll argue. Sorry, I will argue this in that both Orton and Cena are big names to casual fans. When a casual fan tunes into a pay-per-view or even like a live Raw, if they see someone like Cena and Orton, they're more likely to pay attention than two guys that they've never seen before. Now, on the understanding that the casual fans make up quite a bit of the standard audience, these guys won't get bored of that straight away. Guys like all of us in here just now will get more bored because we are hardcore fans who pay attention a lot. Like, we've seen the majority of the matches. We've seen the times they've faced. The casual fans who make up most of the audience are the ones that are going to see Cena and Orton and go,
I completely dispute that. My friends who are casual fans even said they are boring. They would rather watch a fast-paced match than they would watch someone like Cena versus Orton, which is never a fast-paced match unless they have the certain spot that they do, including a 5-knuckle shuffle, some RKO crap. Oh no, it's a reversal. Well, nobody really cares, let's be honest, King. That's generally the way that these matches go, and every time that it happens, it's the same old thing. And that's what bothers me. It's not the fact that, oh yeah, we've seen this a million times. Even the casual fans will not like. Even casual fans. Let's look at Adrian Neville, for example. Adrian Neville, to me, and to casual fans alike, seeing him go at a high speed is more interesting than seeing someone go at a slow pace. That's the way that perception works. It's not that there's, this is more amazing. It's that it feels like there is more happening within a shorter amount of time, which makes it more exciting. You then have things like Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, which have the psychology. They also have the pace when it's needed. Orton versus Cena does not have the pace except for the most predictable spots in the world.
Again, okay, that's predictable to us, though. If you're a casual fan that's tuned in for the first time, right, first or second time, you've seen them fight 1 or 2 times.
No one's going to buy a pay-per-view for this pay-per-view for the first time. Let's be 110% honest here. 186% honest.
You would be surprised. I mean, if people have bought the network, they're seeing this anyway. They're not going to care. They'll watch it because they're getting it.
Guys, if you are watching this podcast and Hell in a Cell is your first pay-per-view, you are an idiot. Sorry, just saying.
You gotta start somewhere, man. If this is where some, like kids, for instance, if this is where they're going to start out, this is what they're going to see.
Kids will start out with a Monday Night Raw because their parents will not allow them to go and buy a pay-per-view for something they've never seen.
But I'm not saying it's going to be a pay-per-view. They're not paying for the pay-per-view. They're paying for the network. So if they're seeing this on the network as their first one, then this is going to be a big deal for them. They're seeing 2 big stars in the final match. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just saying I see the logic behind why they've done this.
Even from a casual fan standpoint, there is something, and I can't say what, I can't put my finger on it, there is something more entertaining about Ambrose and Rollins than there is about Cena and Orton, and that's not coming from a hardcore fan's perspective, because a hardcore fan would cut it down and say, oh yeah, well this is what's right, this is what's wrong. No, from a casual point, that is more, there is something to it, there's chemistry there that I can't really, I don't know how to put it, it's chemistry. Those two go well together. You put Cena and Orton together and they do okay, but they're not 5-star match material together for the most part. I know they've had some good matches together. They're not 5-star match material for the most part. I mean, let's look at the TLC match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship last year, the unification match. I wouldn't at any point recommend to anyone, oh yeah, this is an amazing match, you have to go watch. I'd say it's a 3, maybe 4-star match. There was no point in that match where I thought, oh, this is absolutely fantastic.
I have an analogy for them. I have an analogy for Cena and Orton.
Go for it.
You know, based on, you watch them, and it's they're like an old married couple that have been having sex for years and years and years. They know the routine, they go through the routine, and they can set their watches by the routine. Basically, it's start, middle, and end, and they're done in time to watch Breaking Bad.
That's a really fair analogy.
That's actually a perfect analogy. Meanwhile, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins are still in the honeymoon phase.
It's not. It's nowhere near that good.
I like my analogy. Thank you.
It's a great analogy. Unfortunately, the people you use it on don't deserve it.
Even Rent disagrees with us. Come on, man. How can Rent disagree with something I say? Come on, that's how you know I'm right.
Like I said, I'm not disputing it. I believe fully that Ambrose and Rollins should main event. However, I'm saying I understand the reasons why WWE may have put that match as second to last.
I understand the reasons, and I think that not taking a risk is stupid. When you're trying to expand an audience, like they are with the network, like they are with everything else, you need to spice things up, because as they can see from the subscription numbers so far, playing it safe is only going to get you so far. It is now a point in this company, they have been there for 10 years, Cena and Orton, it is now time to try something new and add a new flavour, which is something that you'll see everyone do. McDonald's always introduces a new burger, KFC always introduces a new meal, everybody does it, everybody introduces something new and pushes it as hard as they can. That is what they need to do, and that's what they don't have the balls to do right now, and that is the problem.
But they don't take the McRib, the Big Mac off the menu to do it.
No, but
no, they don't. But they move it further down the menu.
Star of the menu either. It should be the new flavor, right? You know how they do the big promotions. Oh, the McRib is back, or the extra big cheeseburger. What the hell I got going on now?
You want to compare the cheeseburgers?
Big Mac and the quarter pounder on the menu because they're basically the mainstay. They're the foundation of the menu. They've been around forever, but they don't take center stage anymore. So I could see Cena and Orton being the kind of like, where you have the ebb and flow. Cena and Orton are the ebb because they have the slow. They don't have the really, freaky deaky exciting matches, the honeymoon matches.
Hold up, can I?
You want people to kind of walk away from the pay-per-view and kind of go, holy shit, did you see that? My goodness, I've got to tune in for Raw. I want to get the next pay-per-view. And to actually invest in the characters. I couldn't invest in Cena if I wanted to.
Well, let me just go back to my analogy. You're on about, let's say McDonald's, when they introduce something, they don't take away the Big Mac. I completely agree. But when you walk in and you look up at the sign where you ordered from, and you look at the menu, you will then see the McRib take the front, and you'll see the Big Mac on a slightly smaller picture to the side of it. That's what they need to be doing. They cannot be sitting there and going, oh, we're introducing the McRib, but it's over in the corner over there. Well, you're not really going to see it, because nobody really gives a fuck. Because that's the problem that they're doing right now. They're saying, hey, this is an awesome card, we're going to slide it somewhere in the middle and hope that you're going to notice it. And nobody's really going to give a shit. They need to be pushing it, and they need to be saying, this is the new thing, this is it, watch it.
This is a recurring conversation with us, I've noticed.
Of course it is.
It is, because it's a recurring issue with the company.
I wouldn't say that it's an issue. I think that this is what happens anytime you have regulars versus when you have casuals.
I completely agree.
The casuals are the ones that are the long tail. They're the ones that make the most money for the company. The diehards, the regulars, they're very loud, and they represent a very small percentage of the actual revenue.
You don't have to be a hardcore McDonald's fan to want a McRib.
Well, I understand their point, especially when it comes to like merchandise sales, because the casual fans will buy the T-shirts, and they'll buy the autographed pictures, and they'll buy the, you know, the commemorative programming and that kind of stuff. And it's the hardcore fans that will actually shell out hundreds of dollars on replica belts and, you know, a lot of that other, the more expensive stuff, because they're more invested. Whereas a casual fan will think, yeah, $35 for a t-shirt, why the hell not? Because they'll spend $35 to $40 on a concert t-shirt if they went to a concert. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. If you sell, you know, to use that analogy, 1 million people at $10 versus 100 people buying a $200 belt. So they make 20 grand on the guys that are buying the $200 belts, and they make $10 million on the people that buy the network.
Yep.
I completely agree with that, but I feel like trying to only keep that market and not expand, it's not even that. I don't even know how to put it using that analogy. But like I've said, they have this issue of playing the same old record over and over again and saying, yeah, this record works. But when there is an opportunity to increase revenue and to push something new that fans can be interested in to a greater extent, like let's say Austin, let's say argument's sake, if Austin never happened, Austin was now 20, 30 years younger. Austin's just started in the company and he's just come up to the main roster. The fans are 110% behind him, but they don't want him on the main event of the pay-per-view. They want to put him part way through. To me, that is WCW's fault and problem and issue that they had.
But we just saw that with Daniel Bryan, and they were forced to push him in the main event. Daniel Bryan main evented for a year and a half.
Yeah, he did.
And then he got seriously injured because I'll be honest with you, I don't see him coming back.
So did Austin. It's the same thing.
But it took too long for them to push Bryan, and which led to a lot of weariness from even the casual fans that I know were weary going into Mania because they were like, we've been watching this since on and off since SummerSlam.
Okay, and
they didn't watch every week, but every now and then I'd have them pop up and say, is he still not the champion? And I'm like, no.
I don't want to keep belaboring the point, but Daniel Bryan came into this Mania going for the world title. Last Mania, he was the tag champion. The year before that, he was world heavyweight champion. The year before that, he had just dropped the U.S. title. Daniel Bryan had a 4-year run.
Yeah, he did. It's not a case of, and I mean, let's face it, he wasn't world champion very long, 18 seconds. I mean, there you are.
He was the world champion for like 7 or 8 months.
Yeah,
and then he got the WWE World Heavyweight Championship 3 different times.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying is that he's been around long enough that, you know, and granted, I mean, his getting over with the Authority was really organic, or with the crowd was really organic, you know, and I think that them doing the underdog storyline, I think the storyline went a little too long. You know, it had its moments, but they could have pulled the trigger on it sooner.
And that's what I don't want them to do with Amber.
And have him be champion going into WrestleMania.
Ooh, awful.
I agree with Francis.
I completely disagree. I mean, I feel that it took them far too long to pull a trigger.
I don't mean that to be that to be rude. I'm saying that because if you're for the off pay-per-views with Bryan coming in as champion, I think that's great. But the story of a WrestleMania is much more of a broad story. It was meant to be a Rocky story. If he comes in as champion, I mean, there's not much intrigue to that. It's a title.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that if they'd pull the trigger on, say, Royal Rumble, because I will be honest with you, it was great that he achieved what he did at WrestleMania, but I think Taker losing may have overshadowed his championship, you know, winning the championship just a tiny bit.
100. I completely agree with that because I feel like even at the end of that, the pops that he got, yeah, it was a loud pop. Would it have been louder if people still weren't recovering from the fact that Taker's streak just ended? Yeah, probably.
You know, I think that he was. It was great that he won. It was great that he had the triple threat match, and he had the match with Triple H, and then they had the match at the end, and he won, and it was great. Everybody was celebrating. But I think the fact that Taker lost and the streak ending and everybody going, holy shit, what just happened? I think it did take away from his Mania moment of winning the championship just a little bit, because yes, he shared that WrestleMania 30, what an iconic moment for him, but let's be honest, if people talk about WrestleMania 30, the first thing they're going to say is that's when the Taker streak ended. It's not going to be Daniel Bryan won the championship, woo, woo, woo. It's Taker's streak was ended, and this is just my personal opinion. I have nothing against Daniel Bryan. I just think they could have pulled the trigger either at Royal Rumble or at another major pay-per-view.
Okay,
That's a completely respectable opinion, and I can understand it totally. I couldn't disagree more, but I do get that side of it. It makes perfect sense.
I get both sides of this claim. Okay, Levels wants to move on, clearly.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the only thing I would disagree with what Chris had said. You said his pop was quieter after Taker had lost.
No, I didn't say it was quieter. I said it probably would have been a little bit louder had of Taker not lost.
I fully believe that Daniel Bryan's pop was as big as it could be, on the understanding that the crowd had been broken down, Taker had lost, and it knocked the crowd off balance. Anything could happen, and the only person left to make the crowd happy at the end of that pay-per-view was Daniel Bryan. The crowd didn't expect him to win on the knowledge that the unbeatable Undertaker at WrestleMania had just lost.
Can I just jump in here for 1 second, because this is the discussion we have about casual fans. Mania, for the most part, the crowd reaction is not casual fans. They are the hardcore. Everyone knew going into that Bryan was going to win, and let's not lie for 1 second.
No, I don't agree with you at all.
No, I don't.
I agree with you 100%. I think all
of us as hardcore fans expected it. I think all of us hoped that it would happen.
I sure as hell didn't.
The build was.
I expected it. I wasn't surprised at all that he won.
No, I wasn't surprised either. But would you have been surprised if he lost?
No.
Yeah, I would have. I actually would have rather have seen Batista win that title than.
I would have been gobsmacked if he had lost.
I would honestly have been shocked and preferred it if Batista had won that, purely because I wouldn't have seen it. One, I would not necessarily have seen it coming, and two, because it would make sense for Batista's return.
Okay, but my point is,
Batista winning the title anyway because he had to promote the Marvel movie, and
that's true actually.
Been able to carry the title anyway.
My point is, Chris, you were saying about his pop being slightly louder. Because the crowd were knocked off balance, anything could have happened in the last match. Like, feasibly, no one expected The Undertaker to lose, right? Everyone thought Taker's going to win, regardless. And if anyone says that they thought Lesnar was going to win, Rentis, I know you did, it was like a 1 in a million chance. The fact is, because Undertaker lost and he was unbeatable and we all expected him to win, when the crowd were thrown off balance, because it gave them that thought of, oh my god, Daniel Bryan could actually lose this. And the crowd were fully behind Daniel Bryan. Marks, casual fans, and long-time fans, they were all behind Bryan. He was the shining glory, basically. If he had lost, the audience went home sad and disappointed. They had no idea what was happening. Yes, people would have spoken about it, but then it definitely would have been about Undertaker. Because now they spoke specifically. After he lost, yes, Undertaker is mentioned, but Daniel Bryan's pop coming off that was bigger because he did achieve what the crowd wanted. And the crowd needed something to uplift them. And that was the perfect way to do it.
Let's be honest. Keeping in mind the sizes of the arena, do you not think he would have gotten a louder pop if he had won the Royal Rumble? If he had either won the Royal Rumble or won the title at the Royal Rumble?
No, I don't think he would have at all.
I think he would have, considering how hard that crowd was into him.
Nope.
Okay, Crystal, what was your question?
Okay, this is a thought I have. Now, I remember coming across an article, and I can't remember where it is, but it was with a referee, and they, yes, the matches are predetermined, but they're also given their overriding order to you make the 3 count. So if the wrestler, even though they're booked to win, cannot get off the mat, you have to do the 3 count. I'm wondering, was Taker originally supposed to win and
Taker
couldn't
was
get, and hang on, and couldn't get off the mat, so the ref did the 3 count, and they changed the Daniel Bryan's the outcome of that match for Daniel Bryan to win, so that the crowd would go home happy.
no. I don't think that was the case purely because it was said by. I've always had this theory that Lesnar could have ended it going in. I didn't necessarily believe it, but I had the theory because of the UFC confrontation that they had when Lesnar Taker appeared after one of Lesnar's matches and was like, "Do you want to do it?" And everyone after that kind of went, "Oh yeah," they were talking about a match. And as they went in, I remember Taker saying if Taker said something in an interview about wanting to do his original attire before when he had his final match, and as soon as he came out, I turned around to my friend and I went, "It's his last match, or one of his last matches."
Yeah.
And that's the only way that I knew, for example. So I did have that theory that Lesnar could have won. I don't necessarily think it was changed on the fly. I think going into that, Lesnar was meant to win it because, and this is something that's been backed by by a lot of other people, is if you're going to have a guy end the streak, one, you make it look someone that looks believable, which is Lesnar. Two, you have it as a guy who doesn't give a crap if he's booed or not, which again is Lesnar. If you'd have had, let's say, Bray Wyatt end that, no. Lesnar was the one guy who would have done that and made it look believable and would have played it out okay. Well, thanks to Heyman, anyways.
Well, and they didn't give it to Cena either, for that reason.
No, they wouldn't have given it to Cena purely because of Jesus, the reactions. He may as well have been a heel. You have to have a heel beat Taker because you are not going to get a good reaction ever again in your career.
Yeah.
Again, unless you've got Paul bloody Heyman sat there,
Pretty much.
The thing about Daniel Bryan, I couldn't understand how the logic could come in that they changed it to send the crowd happy after this went wrong. I don't think that went wrong. There was a report going around that Taker wanted Lesnar to end the streak years ago, which is why he went to the UFC fight and asked him if he wanted to go back and do it. And also there was the fact that Vince apparently talked him into it backstage, which apparently people close to Taker have also backed up.
Well, fair enough then.
Either way, I'm okay with the way it went down. I think,
Yeah.
the whole discussion about Brian we were having, thankfully it's in the past, and I think it's probably best that we cut it we cut the head off the flower before we end up blossoming and continually arguing about the same topic. But I fully get where you guys are coming from. I disagree with it, like Rancis said, but I understand where you're coming from. We got a question. On you go.
I was going to say, just to quickly tie this back in, very quickly to tie this back in, this is why I wanted to pull the trigger on Ambrose now rather than try and drag it out, because I feel it would be better to give them a chance the way that they gave Bryan a chance, because Bryan got over, so could Ambrose, so could Rollins, and that means having more stars instead of relying on the old ones.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for the, let's go for the, on you go.
It took 3 years to get to the main event level, didn't it?
Yeah. Okay, and following that, you want to talk about Stone Cold. Stone Cold was over.
I hear you. It's been so long since Raw.
There we go.
I am not sure. I haven't. I should have. I should have prepared that, but I didn't know we were going to do that segment.
My pub was seeing Stardust and Goldust have a match with Cena, purely because I feel like that may have been them testing the water to see crowd reactions. Because, I mean, if you're going to put them with two guys, they could have put them with someone else. Like, it didn't have to be them. But the fact that it was, I'm happy about that. Also, massive, 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 massive pop for the Bray Wyatt vignette. In terms of heat for the week, my heat would have been having Dean Ambrose win in a kind of cheap way, but also awesome way, that when he did You Can't See Me and then took the contract. But the fact that they made it that, he had to get interference, there had to be interference, it felt kind of meh. Krista cannot currently hear us, she'll be back in a minute.
Yeah. I'm going to go all TNA this time. I'm going to go for my pop. His name is Iris. His name is Tyrus. His name is Tyrus. His name is Tyrus. Okay, and my heat is going to be, unfortunately, on the main event, you had a bunch of stars kind of just thrown together. Rude wins again, but he's beating the same guys, and I hate to see Aries lose, and I hate to see Jeff Hardy lose, and it's, they've got a revolving door spin cycle on their main event scene because they haven't done enough to produce new stars. So they did a good job. They really did. They produced a good main event, but I just hated that it's the same guys over and over again.
And Krista, what about your pop and heat?
Don't really have one this week. Sad to say, I wasn't really enthusiastic about anything I saw.
Good or bad, huh?
Well, and I will make a confession. I didn't sit through all of Raw. I did not watch SmackDown, and I only saw the last hour of TNA.
I didn't. I don't watch TNA, I don't watch SmackDown, and I skipped through Raw.
I look at the results. Thank you, Bleacher Report, for posting them. Sometimes I will look at the results, and then I'll go and watch the match if it's if it's something I want to see. Just because at this stage in the game, I do live with my grandma. There are times where if I'm not into Raw or SmackDown or even TNA at that point, I will not make my grandmother sit and watch 3 hours or 2 hours or even an hour of wrestling, and it's unfair. And we only have one, so I have. Yeah,
I just run out of patience with the show, so yeah.
Well, and that's partly my problem too. That if I spend more time looking at my Twitter feed than I do watching the show, that tells me a lot that I'm not being drawn into the action like I should be. And I can guarantee you, if it's a 20-minute promo to kick off Raw, I lose interest very, very fast.
Dude,
and
I love my Twitter followers, and let me tell you something. For Raw to be better than what my followers are bringing, it's going to be a really good Raw.
Well, that's Raw after WrestleMania was amazing. There's been a couple of Raws that have been absolutely amazing. But for the most part, I end up missing most of the matches and have to go back and watch them because I'm following what's on my Twitter feed. And even as of late, because I was in Calgary for 6 weeks and didn't have wrestling, so I didn't monitor my Twitter feed on Mondays and Friday nights. And by the time I watched it online, it was much, much too late to start commenting on things I saw. So I've been basically mute on Twitter when it comes to Raw and SmackDown and even in Impact for like the last.
Yeah,
I give him my
I have
pop
to
and
admit, I remember the promo at the start with Ambrose and Cena. Again, Ambrose was the main reason I watched that.
Yep.
I watched the match with Cena and Ambrose, and then Cena and Ambrose again. Other than that, I can't really tell you what happened on Raw because I was just, yeah. And anyway, yeah, we do need to get levels popping heat for the week.
No,
that would
absolutely.
be. You want to introduce? Go on, Krista. You finish yours.
I
No,
can't hear.
go ahead. It's your
I can't-
turn now, Levels. Absolutely, lay it on us.
I can't hear him, but
Well, you
if you
drop out
can
and come
hear
back in.
me, go ahead and jump out and jump back in.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into my unpopular opinion of the week.
Hey, wait a minute. What was supposed to do is pop in heat.
We'll get to it. I think he's having technical difficulties, but it's connected to what it's connected to what I was saying before. I've gotten to a point where I pretty much will watch most of Raw. If I can, I'll watch all of it. I've gotten to a point where I probably will watch about half of Impact. Maybe I'll watch all of it, and I won't watch anything else. I won't watch main event. I won't watch superstars. I don't even go on the network anymore unless it's a pay-per-view. Main event, if somebody says, hey, look, you have to turn on main event, I'll turn on main event. And I don't watch NXT, which brings me to my unpopular statement of the end of the week. I can't stand NXT. I don't like watching minor league anything. And NXT is completely insufferable for me. And I probably will lose 100 followers because of that. But it's just the reality of it. I pretty much watch the big league stuff, and that's it.
So you can afford to
That's-
lose 100 followers.
I was
We're
gonna
in
say,
a print toga.
to be fair, that's understandable because I only watch the NXT like takeover and stuff like that. Those are good. Those are fantastic. Those live events are better than Raw. That's all I'll say.
So bring on the hate, baby.
The
Bring it on.
They're a bit brutal.
Krista, do you want to give your pop in here, or do you mind if I go? Or
You already did it.
Go ahead.
cool. I just wanted to be sure. My pop, like Francis said, his name is Tyrus. That is fantastic. I mean, if they keep that up, I'm going to be more than happy for a year. They can do that for a year. They can make him the bodyguard and then have him turn. I don't give a shit. I want to see Tyrus go at it.
It's Tyrus.
His name is Tyrus. It's awesome.
I thought it was Tyrese with percentage.
His name is Tyrus. Tyrus.
Sorry.
In case you didn't get that, his name is Tyrus.
Got it.
You put that on T-shirts, you put that on merchandise, I'll buy it all. I'll walk out in public like I'll walk in banner with his name is Tyrus written on me.
Awesome.
We'll put an arrow on it and it can point to your Johnson.
Yeah, they can, and I'll say his name is Tyrus. Do you know what? My heat for the week, Chris, goes to your pop. My heat for the week is the fact that the tag team champions and another established tag team were being beaten down by two solo stars. This shouldn't be the case. I hate when this happens, and WWE go through phases of doing it. A tag team should always be better than a solo wrestler, two solo wrestlers in the ring, especially two that aren't meant to be gelling together. The fact that you had Cena and Ambrose basically outsmart two tag teams and get them to pin each other, you know, it's not a great sign. I realize it helps to elevate the feud between the two tag teams, but at the same time, there was no need for that.
I'd just like to jump into your heat for a second here because, yeah, I do completely get that. The only reason I said it was my light pop was because we got to see them in a semi-main event kind of situation where it was main event feud entangling with Stardust, which is what I'm interested in.
I'll argue that and say if you put Heath Slater in a match with John Cena, it doesn't become a main event match; it becomes a squash match. If you put John Cena and Dean Ambrose, two main event in quotations guys in there with two tag teams, I expect them to lose in a tag team situation, regardless of the match.
I don't think we need.
I completely agree.
I don't think we need to put Dean in quotation marks for the main event anymore. I think he's pretty much established as a main eventer.
Yeah, he's now a main eventer, whether people admit that or not. He's in the main event feud right now. My other pop, going back to it, was Mizdow at the ringside with his acting skills.
Yeah, he is kind of nailing it all the time now. I like seeing Mizdow. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with him. I think he's probably going to have the Alex Riley style face turn for a little bit. Despite the fact that he is basically a face in the eyes of the crowd while Miz is the heel, you know, I would like to see it happen at some point. I'm going to give my unpopular opinion in that WWE programming is becoming increasingly, well, it's not unpopular, this is probably popular, which is a pain in the ass. It's unpopular in the fact that from a lot of my followers who are strongly WWE fanboys, I'm sorry, deal with it. WWE programming is becoming increasingly difficult to watch, specifically due to things like the Divas division, the tag division, the lack of interest in the two mid-card belts, the constant changing of storylines, dropping of gimmicks very quickly. I'm struggling to give a shit about a product I once loved. Like, at no point, like you guys have already said, should I be paying more attention to my Twitter followers than Raw or SmackDown or Main Event at the time. Like,
Oops.
yeah, you guys are too damn interesting. Way to ruin Raw.
Sorry.
For me, though, I mean, if that's the case, you just guys, you ruin Raw for me. If that's the case, WWE really needs to focus on what they're doing. Like, I realize I'm not the sole audience. I'm a hardcore fan, and I will watch regardless because I live in hope, like many people, that the show will get better. But they should not be focusing on stuff that isn't going to be either storyline or at least some kind of match for a pay-per-view. I miss the days when pay-per-views meant something. Pay-per-views no longer mean anything. They're deemed special events because they're not even pay-per-views anymore.
This is something Rentis is going to 100% agree with, 100% disagree with. If you want to make things interesting, you book every storyline like a main event storyline, in the sense that you pull out all the stops and you put all the effort in. You don't write a half-ass story between the Miz and... How the hell do we even get on to Miz Sheamus from Miz friggin... whoever the hell the Intercontinental Champion is? See, this is the problem. I don't even know who the champion is. That's how little I care right now. The issue that we've got here is that there is no story to it. They're just going, oh, we'll stick him in a match with him, just for the sake of it. And I'm like, well, he clearly had beef with... It was Ziggler, wasn't it? Yeah, he clearly has an issue with Ziggler. Why have they suddenly just dropped that and moved away to Sheamus? There's no explanation whatsoever. There's no story to it. There's no reason to it. And it's not interesting. If they... I was going to say, if they put storylines to every part, whether they're good storylines or bad storylines, this is what the Attitude Era had a lot of. A lot of people say, yeah, the Attitude Era is not perfect. It had storylines. A lot of them were bad storylines, but it had storylines.
Yeah, I'm gonna shock you, but you're not gonna like it, Chris. I actually 100% agree with you. I think they should book every match as though it were a main event match. And here's the thing. I think they actually do. The same writers write for everybody. I think that the reason why it comes off the way it comes off and why the guys are slotted on the card the way that they're slotted is because that's their level of ability. I think the guys who are at not the opening match, because the opening match is a pseudo main event match on Raw, but the guys who are going on second, third, fourth, fifth, they're at that place on the card because that's the level of interest that they're able to generate with their level of ability and talent.
I actually disagree. I disagree on the sense that Jericho to me was better, has more in him than the matches that he had. I just think it's that a lot of people don't have the fire that they had when they first joined the company, and that they wanted to impress in the way that Ambrose and Rollins and Reigns probably doesn't have that as much. But in the sense that definitely Ambrose and Rollins have that. Ziggler kind of has that. But then you get guys like Sheamus who just don't have it, if you know what I mean.
They don't have
I think.
Yeah,
I'll argue that I think Sheamus has more heart now than he did 6 months ago because he's came back and
6 months. Yeah, I completely agree. But when he first joined the company, hell no.
Yeah, no, I think obviously now he's in a situation where he sees these new guys. I know if I was hired and I'd been one of the top guys and all of a sudden I'm lower than them, I'm going to go out my way to show that I've got the heart and I've got the balls to get up there and do that.
Which is why,
Sheamus is good, but this is where he belongs. He's a mid-card guy, especially as a
Oh,
face.
He's a top mid-carder. He's like the guy you beat to go into main event.
see,
Yeah,
I agree. He's a mid.
somewhat like Kane.
Like,
You know what
dude,
I mean? You don't really want him as a top guy, but you know when you look at some of the other people who have come along who have really inspired us, you look at guys like Wyatt and Dean Ambrose and Seth, and to an extent Roman Reigns. You know, he's still working on it. But these guys haven't been there that long, and they have just breezed past people like Sheamus and Dolph Ziggler. And the reason why is because they're just more talented. That's my opinion.
I disagree because I've seen Sheamus put on some pretty good matches, but the issue I've got with it isn't that I honestly think that he just doesn't have the hunger for it, like people are saying. And this is why I prefer to watch the NXT live events, because, and yes, it's going to be an hour and 41 minutes in. I'm going to mention the name Sami Zayn. I'm also going to mention names. I'm also going to mention names like Tyler Breeze and Adrian Neville, who aren't there yet, and you can see in their matches they are putting 100% of the effort in because they want to prove something, which is something that I think guys like Sheamus feel like they don't need to prove anymore, which is where the issue comes. You should be having to prove yourself every time you go out into the ring because you're putting the show out on a weekly basis, and you need to prove that you belong there, and you need to want to prove that you belong there in order to be good at what you do.
By your existence on the roster.
That's exactly.
I'll give you a Trish Stratus quote for you. Trish Stratus said that every match is an audition for your next chance to be on television.
Absolutely. She's absolutely 100% right. And I think that the guys who are going out there, I think just about every time they go out there, they give everything they got. Now, there is the odd time where you just don't have it. You had a death in the family, or you're exhausted from being on the road, or you've got a nagging injury, whatever the case may be. You may not have it every night. But I think what you're seeing from the guys on this roster is this is the best that they can do. I don't think anybody is going half speed. Maybe once in a while you'll have a guy who's special like Randy Orton who goes half speed. But for the most part, these guys are doing all that they can, in my opinion.
I disagree because you look at a guy like, let's compare Sheamus to Heath Slater. There is a reason Heath Slater is more over with the crowd, and that's not because he's a comedy gimmick. That's because he goes out there and he puts the effort in.
Actually, it is.
No, but I know what Chris is saying. Heath Slater is embodying the role that he's been given. Yes, he is a jobber, and probably the best jobber they have, because he 100% puts everything he has when he goes out into the ring. He embodies the gimmick. Like, yes, this is what I want to do. Yes, 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 yes. Whereas some of the guys, they're given a gimmick they don't particularly care for, so they half-ass it.
Let's put it this way. When
if you put Sheamus in the same spot that Heath is in, Sheamus would be better at it.
No, I honestly think that if, let's say Raw 1000, for example, we had JBL give the clothesline from hell to Heath Slater. If that had been given to John Cena, Cena would have rolled onto his back and he'd have been up in a few seconds. You give that to Heath Slater does a friggin' backflip, lands on his head, and is like, well, I'm down for the count. And he makes it look like, he sells it, he makes it look like, because he puts the effort in to do it.
But he doesn't oversell like Ziggler does.
Yeah, Ziggler's putting too much effort in, let's be honest.
Yeah, Ziggler oversells too many of the moves.
Yeah,
I think that's part of his problem, and why he's stuck in the mid-card, is that he oversells.
Yeah, but you take a guy like Sheamus, I'd rather see Heath Slater in a match than I would Sheamus, because at least I know Slater would give it 100%.
And if you look at Sheamus when he first started, and you look at Sheamus now, he's almost kind of, before he went away in the injury, he kind of let himself go a little bit.
There's also. I'm going to throw
something out here. I don't know if it'll be cool, but I'm going to just throw it out here. I like Heath Slater. Is it okay that I like Heath Slater better than Sheamus, but I
I
think
like
Sheamus is better?
I like you Slater more than Sheamus. I think Sheamus is better, but I think that Slater puts more into it, which is why he's more entertaining.
Well, and that's just it. And that Sheamus has been doing, I really got to be honest with you. Sheamus doing that 1-800-fella shit, that really kind of killed his.
And it goes back to a phrase that we've used before.
But that's my point. You just made the point that I was just making. I think if you get given the amount of stuff to Sheamus that they've given us later, the goofy band and all the other freedom to not have to protect his character, I think Sheamus could be just as funny, if not funnier, than Heath Slater if you put him in that role. I think Sheamus is a better overall performer than Heath
Yeah.
Slater. And
I think
if you put Heath Slater in Sheamus's role, he would absolutely bomb.
I think Sheamus, though, he could do the comedy, but it's that, he's smiling, but you're not really sure if he's being funny, if he's taking the mick.
This is something that we've said before, and the phrase that was thrown around before was WWE knew that they knew that the faces, the baby faces. I don't necessarily think that's an issue. I think that some of the baby faces just get content with where they are and think, I've proven that I need to be here. I feel that's like what Orton and Cena have kind of done, is that I've proven that I'm here.
Yeah.
And you have a guy like Ambrose who flies into the ring, and Ambrose has something to prove, Rollins has something to prove, Bray Wyatt has something to prove, Cesaro definitely has something to prove, which is why he puts on a good match. Almost every match that he has is because he's still trying to prove that point.
He still needs a better finisher than the neutralizer on the big man, though, because it's just painful to watch.
Not everybody is good at appealing to the crowd. Like, I'm sure that I'm not willing to say agree with you. I agree with you in that I'm not willing to say that WWE quote unquote neuters their faces, but I am quite sure that if you want to be a top face, they ask you to find ways to try to draw the crowd in, and not there's only so far that the tweener face, the ambiguous face can go. Okay, you can't be the top guy like that. You can't be ambiguous and appeal to the broad audience. The broader audience is going to need a more obviated figure, a more elucidated figure. So you're going to have someone who can appeal to the audience. Look at Austin. Austin found a way to draw the audience in by still being aggressive and a little rough around the edges, but he was talking to the audience. Give me the hell yeah. Who wants to see me bust this guy in the face, or whatever he would say. You have to find a way to do that, and I use Punk as a counter argument. I mean, not a counter argument, but as the counter example. When he tried to appeal to the audience directly, the way you have to be a top face, he bombed at that. He didn't look genuine at it. So I think that's sort of the chasm there. You got to be able to appeal if you're going to be a face. It's not so much neutering, but you are going to have to talk directly to the audience and try to bring them in.
You say that, but Ambrose gets a bigger fan reaction at live shows right now than Cena does. At the end, when they stand up on the top ropes together, and when they do the usual, they try and get the cheers. Ambrose, they're taking it in turns, and Ambrose is getting the louder cheers at the end than Cena is.
But that doesn't matter, because there's 8,000 people at a house show, and there's 4 million people that watch on TV. The TV audience is what matters.
But the people that go to the house shows are a select sample of the people that will be watching on TV as well.
They are indeed.
Means willing to pay $125 for a bloody ticket.
I want to pay that.
This is what I said earlier, that the majority of the time it is the TV audience that matter, and that's why everything that is done on Raw has to be appealing to both TV more so than the audience.
But the issue you then get is, where do you draw the distinction, and how do you know what the TV audience wants without putting something out there to test it?
Well, and this is the thing, though, is that in a lot of cases, what the audience in attendance, at least they don't have to suffer through the god-awful commentary.
That's a good point.
It's hard. It all depends too. Like when I went to Raw, I was in the cheap seats because, like I said, I ain't paying $125 for a ticket. I watched most of the action on the jumbotron. I sat with binoculars to watch the actual in-ring action because I was that high up in the Saddle Dome and confession time. The binoculars that I used, I bought that day and then returned them the following day. Back to the store, get my money back. I will admit that it's you really do. You know, you want to give people in the arena something to see, but they're mostly catering to the folks at home because a third of the arena isn't seeing a whole lot except what's shown on the jumbotron. They're not seeing the actual in-ring action, close up and personal. They're not really seeing Ambrose or Rollins or anybody else's facial expressions, you know, sitting where they are. So they really do have to, I think in a lot of cases, they cater more to the home audience than they do the people in the arena.
But this
To answer Chris's previous question or comment more directly, you're saying where do you get the test field? How do you give a test situation for who can be the next guy? Every match, the entire other 3 or 4 hours where you're there watching Raw or Superstars or SmackDown or Main Event, every match that's not the main event of Raw are those test opportunities.
But that's where, to me, guys like Ambrose have now proven that they should be in the main event, like at Hell in a Cell.
Yep.
No, the number 2 spot is perfect for them.
No, considering which one has a story, which one has a feud, and which one makes more sense to be the main event right now.
The story is what people are going to know, and the entire audience, all of the audience, is going to understand main event Cena Orton. Everybody understands that. There's nobody that
No,
don't get it.
I don't get it. I don't get why they put. No,
Yeah,
no.
they're both 10, multiple time, double
Who
digit
cares?
world champion. You understand that.
Why do they have a match together in Hell in a Cell? There's no need for them to have a match together in Hell in a Cell.
Because it's Orton and
Let it
Cena.
play out.
Because
Also,
it's Orton
I'm saying
and
let it
Cena.
play out. Let it play out because I guarantee you, Raw this week, they're going to explain why Orton attacked Cena and caused the distraction. They're going to explain why that happened. Orton's going to have some kind of character development. They're going to have the match at Hell in a Cell, and then of course you're going to get Orton teasing yet more interaction with Seth Rollins. This is for the purpose of Orton getting some character build that he has lacked since WrestleMania.
I disagree. I think this is going to be a simple case of we wanted to take somebody out and for no particular reason. Because
Okay.
it's the same as why did Kane get involved?
Well, because he's working with the Authority, but he waited until Orton attacked.
To
Just like
justify his paycheck.
I'd like to point out as well, WWE is aiming to be more realistic, or it seem more realistic, and seem more professional and more sports-like. If that's the case, you take 2 guys like Cain Velasquez and Frank Mir, and you put them in a cage together, and you tell them to fight. People are going to watch that because they're 2 marquee names. It doesn't matter if either one has the title. If you put Orton and Cena in a Hell in a Cell, and you tell them to fight, people are going to watch it regardless because it's 2 marquee names.
Yeah.
I don't believe it should be the main event, but it's a co-main event, which brings me to Fully Loaded 2000, which had 3 co-main events. It had a trio of main events. You had Rock Benoit, which, by the way, was not the most heated feud at the time. You had Angle versus Undertaker, which was probably more heated than Rock Benoit, but that was third last on the card. And then you had Triple H versus Jericho, which was a last man standing match, which probably should have been the main event because it was more heated than Benoit and Rock was.
I'm going to throw out a quote that I think it was Rents that said this, was there's only one main event and that's the last match on the card.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true, and if that's the case, then we should probably be accepting the fact that WWE have chose to put Orton Rock on there for a reason. I mean, unless they...
We get Orton and Rock at Hell in a Cell?
Sorry, Orton Cena. I was read something at the same time.
I'll be honest with you. Sorry to interrupt, but as much as I'm unhappy with Ambrose and Rollins not closing the show, I kind of hope that this might be a push for them to close a bigger special event.
And I think
In the
it just
future,
it
as
just
opposed to
makes more
wasting it on Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, I think it just makes more sense. If I put Cena and Orton as second to last, there's gonna be a significant chunk of the audience that turns the TV off after that. I mean,
Yeah.
turns off WWE Network after that because that's who they came to see. They've been at this for a decade. They have a massive audience. Most of the WWE audience are Cena Orton fans. The new guys, we appreciate them because we're hardcore followers, but not everybody in the audience is going to get Ambrose versus Rollins. And to give them the chance to steal the spotlight just before Orton and Cena go on, to me, is the perfect place for them.
But to me, they've already given them the opportunity to steal spotlights, which is why it doesn't make sense to give them the same opportunity.
This is why I love wrestling, because the fans can have conflict and still watch the show. It's not like Breaking Bad or True Blood or anything like that where you watch and go, yeah, do you know what, I don't like it, so I'm not watching. Hardcore fans like us will watch the show regardless. Like, I think we can all agree on that. The chances are we will all watch Hell in a Cell, whether it be live or the day after or at some point in the next 2 weeks.
Or if we don't pay for it.
Yeah, well, even if you don't pay for it, you're still going to watch it, right? The fact is, regardless of your dislikes of this, we will watch the show, and that's what WWE know. They're not going to change that until a significant chunk tune off, like Rancis said. So if you do put Orton Cena, Jesus, I almost said Rock again, that's bad. If you put Orton Cena on second last, you've got all the kids that are waiting up to see Cena go to bed before the last match.
Although you could argue that if they put it on last, some of those kids may not stay up late enough to watch it because it's on a Sunday night and kids got school in the morning. And there's probably not a parent on the planet who wants to deal with a grumpy kid because they didn't sleep or get enough sleep.
A mom is always going to let the kid watch Cena.
Yeah. If it was the mom watching Hogan, I think if you were growing up watching Hogan, then at the same time you'd have probably been allowed to stay up and watch Hogan because he was telling you to eat your vitamins and be a good kid. It's the same kind of deal with Cena.
Not in our house.
But Cena's not as popular or as big of a household name as Hogan.
And
Cena's already made the company way more money than Hogan ever did.
But he's still not a household name in a way that Austin, Rock were.
I think that's more opinion than backed up by fact.
I would agree.
No, I think that in the UK that's more fact, but I'm not sure how it is in the US, but here Cena's definitely not a household name. You mentioned.
I would have to say it's probably similar in Canada as well. Everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is. Everybody knows who Steve Austin is because he had the Austin 316. And, well, of course, now everybody knows who The Rock is regardless. But again, every decision that's made by WWE is based on the U.S. audience. The international audience is just a boon. It's more money in their coffers, but in all honesty, and that's why they have the people in the roster they do. That's why they have Khali, because he's big in India. That's why they have the Brit Boys, because they're big in the UK.
They have Bad News Barrett because he's over even in America.
Yeah,
no,
but
he was hired specifically because he was British.
You know what I'm saying is that they cater to a lot of the bigger markets. That's why they signed Kenta.
It's why they signed Kalisto.
Yeah, that's why they signed Kalisto. It's why they signed Del Rio. Why they signed Sin Cara, the original one.
And
they're trying to appeal to those certain markets, but again, they still have to cater to their bread and butter, which is the U.S. market.
Completely agree. I mean, it's one of those situations that regardless of what we do, we're going to watch the pay-per-view, we're going to watch the matches, we're going to watch the stars that we like, and that's just how WWE see it. We pay the company, or we don't pay the company in some cases, Chris. We we still get our kick at wrestling, you know, and that's a
Yep.
big part of being a fan. I'm kind of cool with that either way. Um, I'm going to have to cut the show here, guys, unfortunately. But tune in on Tuesday night where we're going to be doing LoWDown, hopefully with the whole crew. Lots more conflict, I imagine, going on there, and we'll discuss all of the things that go on in Raw. We will also be discussing with you the first three choices for your Slammy or Lowy awards. Sorry, we will be sending out surveys, and you guys can vote on these as listeners. You can vote on them on Twitter, and we will give you the results live towards Christmas time.
There will also be There will also be an opportunity to tweet me on Tuesday regarding the app and what you guys want to see in a LoWDown app.
Indeed, there shall. So please do tune in Tuesday. We're going to be live and interactive at the usual time, which is 6 p.m. EST, I believe, and 11 p.m. In the UK. So please tune in. A big thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. Rentis, Krista, and Chris. You can get all these guys on Twitter, and as for me, you know where to find me. So we'll just say goodnight there. Does anyone have any last-minute shout-outs they want to do?
Yeah, I'll be doing another article for you coming up, so if anybody has anything they'd like me to talk about or look into, let me know. You can find me on Twitter.
There we
And
go, guys.
give me some ideas of what you'd like to see.
Plenty of articles, plenty of love, and we'll see you all on Tuesday.
Peace
Bye
out.
just now, guys.